Temperatures into the teens. The rain continues through the evening. A lot of spray surface water on the roads for Tuesday evening's rush hour. Yellow warnings remain in place across the west too. That rain continues northwards, grinds to halts on Wednesday across the far north. Further showery rain in the south, but in between we should on Wednesday see something a little drier and a little brighter with some sunshine around. Goodbye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation. Because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A76 is closed between Mulchline and Crosshands due to a serious accident. Plan alternative routes and expect delays. Congestion on the A470 northbound from Corriton to Nantgarv is causing significant slowdowns. In Derbyshire, the A38 southbound between the A50 and A5132 junction is delayed by 20 minutes. In London, the A21 southbound between A26 Tunbridge West and East is shut due to a collision. On the trains, disruptions between Grantham and Retford affect Grand Central and Hull trains. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
You could win your entire Christmas on us this year, all magically delivered to you in time for the big day. There's cash, £30,000 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also a further £10,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £1,000 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag, so there's something for everyone under the tree. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word. Very good evening to you and welcome to Farage with me, your host tonight, Martin Daubry. Coming up on tonight's show.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell.
Yeah, the BBC is in a state of growing crisis as reports suggest that US President Donald Trump could now sue the broadcaster for $1 billion. We'll be revealing how he could do it and speak to a Trump insider in just a moment's time. And meanwhile,
for the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order.
That's right, as yet another one-in, one-out migrant returns to the UK via the Channel. I'll also speak to Tony Smith, the former Border Force chief, to ask about the growing fears of Labour's new migrant HMO regime. And also,
we will remove people with no right to be here and we will secure Britain's borders.
Yeah, could it be now the Boris wave billionaires? Because we will reveal how your money is now being used to pay for foreign deported criminals and illegal migrants to help set them businesses overseas. You couldn't make it up. And finally, as the government continues to refuse to publish migrant crime data, we'll reveal the shocking new analysis on sex offences that proves why the government must tell the public the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. That's all to come. But first, it's time for your headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Martin. A very good evening to you. 7:01 here in the GB newsroom. Donald Trump has threatened to sue the BBC for $1 billion after its chair admitted an error in the editing of a speech by the US president. Mr. Trump's legal team's accusing the corporation of defaming the president, and they have demanded a retraction, giving the broadcaster until Friday evening to respond. Well, earlier, the chairman, Samir Shah, apologised to the Culture, Media and Sport Committee for what he called an error of judgment in the edit, which put two parts of Mr. Trump's speech together. So it appeared he explicitly encouraged the Capitol Hill riots of January 2021. It has prompted the resignation of the BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, and its head of news, Deborah Turness, who's insisted there's no institutional bias at the corporation. Well, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says it highlights long-standing issues at the BBC.
This isn't just about the latest doctoring of a documentary about Donald Trump. It's about the way the BBC has continually covered issues of sex and gender. A lot of women out there believe that the BBC is institutionally biased against them. A lot of Jewish people believe that the BBC is institutionally biased against them. And so those are the people that I'm speaking out for. It's not about just, the high-profile names. It is about everyday people who watch the BBC and know that what they're watching is not true.
At least 8 people have been killed in an explosion in the Indian capital, New Delhi. The blast occurred in a car near the Red Fort landmark, a popular tourist destination in a densely populated area of the city. Police are investigating but say they don't know the exact cause of the explosion. Around 20 other people were injured. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been released from prison 3 weeks into a 5-year jail sentence. The 70-year-old's now under judicial supervision and is banned from leaving the country. An appeal trial is expected to take place in March. Mr. Sarkozy was jailed last month after being convicted of conspiring to raise campaign funds from Libya. He has consistently denied wrongdoing, saying the case has been politically motivated. A second migrant removed under the France one-in, one-out returns deal has crossed back into the UK. GB News has discovered the migrant arrived back into UK waters on a small boat yesterday, one of 400 asylum seekers picked up by Border Force and taken to Dover Harbour. A Home Office spokesman says anyone looking to return to the UK after being removed under the agreement is wasting their time and money. Downing Street insists the detection of the second one-in, one-out migrant returning to the UK shows the system's working. Former BBC Radio 1 DJ Tim Westwood's been granted conditional bail after appearing in court charged with rape and sexual assault. The 68-year-old's accused of offences against 7 women, including 3 indecent assaults at BBC studios in the 1990s. He's also alleged to have raped a woman at a London hotel in 1996 and sexually assaulted another woman at a music festival in the city 20 years later. The former DJ was not required to enter pleas to any of the charges. And the International Olympic Committee is set to announce a blanket ban on transgender women in female competitions early next year. Last week, the IOC's medical and scientific director updated the committee after a review of evidence about permanent physical advantages of being born male. The committee says, though, no decisions have been taken yet. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more around 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Dordman. Now, last night, we saw astonishing scenes from Washington, D.C. when Donald Trump addressed the BBC bias scandal on Truth Social. The top people in the BBC, including Tim Davie, the boss, are all quitting / getting fired because they were caught doctoring my very good speech of January the 6th. Thank you to The Telegraph for exposing these corrupt journalists. And these are very dishonest people who tried to step on the scales of a presidential election. Now, on top of everything else, they are from a foreign country, one that many consider our #1 ally. What a terrible thing for democracy. Well, shortly after, the president's press secretary chimed in and said this. The White House proudly called out their purposeful fake news, and this resignation is an admission of guilt. Everyone should watch GB News. Well, thank you very much, Miss Levitt. Now, of course, it's hard to disagree with the press secretary, but on a more serious note, earlier today it emerged that the president has in fact written to the BBC threatening legal action of at least $1 billion over this controversial edit that led to both the Director General, Tim Davie, and the Chief Executive of BBC News, Deborah Turnus, resigning yesterday.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Well, it gets worse and worse and worse for the embattled BBC, and I'm joined now by the barrister and the writer, Stephen Barrett. Stephen, a pleasure to have your company. We have here the perfect storm. We have the BBC admitting it got it wrong. We have a very litigious president with heritage of making very, very big and painful lawsuits. 15 billion lodged against the New York Times. 10 billion against ABC, a further 10 billion against the CBS, and now a 1 billion lawsuit against the BBC. My learned friend, tell me, on what basis does the president have to sue the BBC?
So the most important question for me was, where was he intending to sue them? And because of the release of the letter, which your colleague Ben Leo broke, and I think you broke on your show, we know that he's threatening to sue them in Florida. I want your listeners and viewers to pay attention to that question, because it is important. These things go round the world now, so that means you can probably sue somebody everywhere. Every legal jurisdiction sees itself as supreme in control of the planet, if not the entire universe. So you can, what we call in the business, forum shop. Now, the reason to pick the United Kingdom is that we're traditionally seen as somewhat more favourable to what we call claimants, what the Americans call plaintiffs. So it's probably easier to get your claim here. The downside to us is that we are traditionally very parsimonious. We're very tight when it comes to damages. So defamation is capped roughly around something like £350,000. That's not as dramatic as $1 billion. In America, it's the other way. It's slightly harder to prove defamation, which is what he's claiming, and he's using the law of Florida. Remember, each US state has its own slightly different legal system, so he's using the law of Florida. A US lawyer would have to answer whether he can then sue in all of the other states as well. I don't know, but the reason he's doing that is because damages in the United States are a lot higher, which is why he's got that $1 billion sum. Let's be absolutely clear. What has happened here is completely disgraceful. I mean, the BBC has disgraced itself before our very eyes. Many of us have held it in incredibly high regard for years, and this is the lowest of the low you can go in journalism. I'm actually quite glad that my granny's not alive to see this, because her faith in the BBC would have been destroyed by what is happening. I strongly suggest that the BBC should negotiate a way out of this, and Mr. Trump puts all sorts of clauses on. The other thing I'll flag for your listeners and viewers is just the ideological difference between UK and US lawyers. So we would traditionally sign an angry letter sent by our lawyers with kind regards, unless we were really angry, in which case we might sign it with regards, which is probably something the Family Division do, because they get much more angry than the rest of us. This letter is fascinating. It finishes with, "Please govern yourself accordingly," all in caps, which is fascinating. And then it says, "Very truly yours," which is actually quite sweet. I mean, that's quite sweet. But what's happening is a very serious threat to the BBC that we will ultimately pay for. I mean, don't lose sight of this. Not only have they disgraced our nation, not only have they insulted the president of our greatest ally, they will cost us money with all of this shameful nonsense. And everybody rushing to their defence now, I'm afraid, disgraces themselves with the BBC. This is a time when you point out, no, BBC, you've done something wrong. You are not immune to criticism. You have betrayed yourselves and you have betrayed us as a nation.
Stephen Barrett, excellently summarised as ever. Thank you for your time. That's the barrister and the writer, Stephen Barrett. Thanks for joining us on Farage this evening. Well, join me now to discuss this in the studio for the Trump BBC fallout, the director of the Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom. That's Niall Gardner, of course, as well. It's Monday. I'm joined by GBNews senior political commentator Nigel Nelson for an hour of arguing. Let's start, though, if I could, with you, Niall Gardner. Niall, do you think that Donald Trump might get a taste for attacking the BBC? This could merely be the opening salvo.
Well, I think that's quite right. I think that Donald Trump has launched the equivalent of a cruise missile strike against the BBC, and rightly so. The BBC's behaviour is absolutely appalling and outrageous. The president is 100% right to be calling them out and also taking legal action as well. I do think that this is potentially the start of far more interventions, actually, in British politics by the US president. I know that within the White House there is deep concern over the assault on freedom of speech in the UK under Keir Starmer. There are large-scale concerns over mass migration into the UK and also concerns over the Chagos issue as well, which is growing in terms of attention within the Trump administration. And I expect it's only a matter of time before the White House intervenes on that issue. And Keir Starmer is a deeply unpopular figure, of course, with Trump supporters. Keir Starmer is viewed as a disastrous socialist who's really destroying Britain. And so there's no love lost there. And I expect that Donald Trump will increasingly intervene, actually, on issues that really relate to US national interest, relating also, of course, to the British government of Keir Starmer. And the BBC is very closely aligned, it has to be said, in the views of many Americans with the Starmer government. It's viewed as very left-wing. It's viewed as what the president calls fake news. And so the BBC is seen as part and parcel of the Keir Starmer socialist establishment in Britain. So, yes, I do think this is just the opening salvo in terms of how the White House is going to move forward in terms of dealing with Keir Starmer, especially now the state visit is behind us.
What would you say to those people, Ed Davey, of course, the Liberal Democrat leader, being top of the list, perhaps, who's saying it's easy why Donald Trump wants to destroy the world's #1 news source. We can't let him. Even the BBC media editor today saying this is a coup. There seems to be no admission of responsibility for this. But what would you say to those who say this is a foreign president? He has no business intervening in British media.
Well, I think there's a good response to that. I would say that Ed Davey really has been a complete clown on this issue and many other issues as well. And the president has every right to respond to the BBC after their appalling, misleading coverage of the January 6th events, actually. And so the BBC basically launched an attack on President Trump with the Panorama documentary. Now President Trump is responding, calling them out. He has every right to do so here. And I think that most British people, frankly, would cheer the US president in calling out the BBC. Why are the British people forced to pay the licence fee for the BBC? A clearly biased organisation. And I do think that what President Trump is doing here is actually supported by millions upon millions of ordinary Britons who've had enough with BBC bias, disinformation, frankly. And so could this even be the beginning of the end of the BBC as a state-funded entity? Yes, I think that is a real reality. And President Trump, I think, has started that process.
Nigel Nelson, let's bring you in. Has the BBC simply bitten off more than it can chew by taking on Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, let's be clear about what Trump can and can't do. First of all, he's the victim here. He's the victim specifically of what the BBC did. So, excuse me, I have no problem with the fact that He's gloating over Tim Davie and Deborah Turner's going. That seems fair enough. Probably he's had his pound of flesh to see that. He probably doesn't need to do a $1 billion lawsuit, but he has. If he chooses to interfere in British domestic politics, and Niall's right, this is just the first salvo, yeah, then I think we would disagree with that. And I'm sure the British public would also be furious about that too. We don't have foreign leaders interfering in our politics any more than our leaders should interfere in theirs.
But no, Gordon, the point is, if particularly the British government is looking to clamp down on people's freedom of speech on online platforms that are ostensibly universally American-owned, Donald Trump would see this as an attack on corporate America.
Yes, it's an assault actually upon American companies, and it's an assault on freedom of speech in the UK and in Europe. It directly impacts, of course, the United States as well. And I think the free speech issue is hugely important for the White House. And I expect the White House will be increasingly condemning what's happening in Britain. It's absolutely appalling that thousands of people have been arrested for their tweets. Britain is no longer, frankly, a free society under Keir Starmer. This is an Orwellian-style government. It's absolutely outrageous. And the United States will be standing up for freedom of speech in the United Kingdom. And I think most British people would applaud that, frankly, actually. You have a US president who actually cares about the freedom of the British people far more than Keir Starmer does.
Final words to you, Nigel Nelson. My question to you is simple. Is the BBC systemically biased?
I don't think it is. But they've made a lot of mistakes, and as a result of that, they're losing public trust. I also don't think that Donald Trump has any right to talk about freedom of speech in this country when he's trying to curtail freedom of speech in his own country by stopping journalists getting material from the White House if he doesn't like them. So the only freedom in Trump's America is the freedom to agree with President Trump.
No one's been arrested for their tweets in America, I have to say. Thousands have in Britain. That's
journalists have been thrown out of the White House.
No journalists have been arrested.
Universities are under pressure.
There's a huge difference between freedom of speech in America, which is protected, and in the UK, where it's being suppressed, frankly, under this Labour government.
OK, we have to leave there, gentlemen. Niall Gardner, superb to see you in Westminster.
Great to be here.
Huge pleasure. Thank you. And, of course, Nigel Nelson, thanks for your contribution. You'll be with us throughout the rest of the show. Now, coming up in just a moment's time, do you remember this?
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order.
Well, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse for the Labour government, yet another one in, one out migrant has come back across the channel via small boat. One in, one out, shake it all about. That's next.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now, here's a reminder of that great flagship policy that the Labour Party announced in the summer that would solve the migrant crisis.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order.
Well, just when you might have thought that the government's woes couldn't get any worse following last week's disastrous PMQs and the news that a further 2 prisoners had been accidentally released, things have become even worse because early today a GB News exclusive revealed that yet another small boat migrant who was deported to France under the one-in, one-out scheme has returned back to the UK via small boats. Now, when this was put to the government earlier on today, they said the individual will be deported again. And this was absolutely evidence of the system working. Well, I'm joined now by the former head of Border Force, of course, that is Tony Smith. Tony, you and I talk about this all the time. One in, one out, shake it all about. It's a complete gimmick, we concluded. But the notion that somebody can come in and be deported and then come straight back in on a dinghy. Tony, we're living in clown world.
Well, Martin, I think the first thing to say is that the success that's being heralded is the fact that we picked this bloke up on biometrics. I can tell you for a fact, we've been fingerprinting and photographing boat arrivals ever since boats began, and we found loads and loads of returners on biometrics. So it's not really a success, Martin. That's just routine. That's the way the system works, so that we can identify people who've been here before. And I also saw a tweet from a Labour MP last week showing a week of 0 arrivals, suggesting that the policy therefore is working, when we all know that was due to the weather. So I do get a little bit concerned when I see some of the propaganda that's coming out about this. I mean, the fact is that the French one-to-one returns policy could work if we were actually removing hundreds or thousands of them back to France. But as you know, we've only removed a very small number, and we've had thousands coming over in the last few days. So I still don't see, thus far, I haven't seen any evidence that this is actually going to be a deterrent to new people, who are waiting over in Calais to come across.
Tony Smith, surely you're not intimating that this is government spin, perhaps up there with comical Ali. Is this comical Keir saying, trust me,
well, I do
everything
get
is a huge success?
I mean, they have to do it, Martin. That's how it works in government. There will be spin machines trying to tell people that everything's, they've got a plan and it's working. But the proof will be, as we've said before, in the numbers. The numbers don't lie, and we know they are now up to 38,000. That's the second highest we've ever had. I don't think they'll crack the 45,000 we had in 2022, but they're going to be probably the second highest ever. That will be their legacy. That's what they'll be remembered by. All these statements about this has worked and that's worked and all the rest of them will count for naught if those numbers keep going up. And as things stand, we know the only thing that's keeping numbers down really is the bad weather they've had in the Channel recently.
Yeah, that's right. We had 14 straight days of terrible weather, and we actually heard Labour parliamentarians saying, look, this is proof policy is working. And then, of course, the weather gods tipped against the government, and we've had 2,000 illegal immigrants arrive since Thursday. And Tony Smith. I was at the Cenotaph yesterday with a lot of armed forces veterans, and they were particularly upset about the fact that 300 illegals landed on British beaches on Remembrance Sunday. A lot of people down Westminster yesterday felt this was a totemic invasion.
Well, it's just downright disrespect, isn't it, Martin? And no wonder, you know, veterans and people are hurting when they see flagrant breaches of the law. You know, these are illegal entrants. I know Nigel will say they're not. They are illegal entrants as defined in Section 33. It is a breach of the law to enter this country without a permission, which they're all doing. They're all committing offences, and actually they don't really care when and where they do it. They're just going to do their damnedest to get here so that they can get a foothold in the UK. And, you know, when to see that happening on probably one of our most significant days in our calendar is going to hurt quite a lot of people, but they have no regard for that. The smugglers are only in it for the money, and the migrants keep coming because they know there's a very, very good chance that they're going to be allowed to stay. So I'm afraid this is a 24/7 operation, and I'm afraid I can't see the end to it at the moment.
Tony Smith, I think you're exactly right. Once again, it's Groundhog Day on British beaches. Former head of the Border Force, Tony Smith, thanks for joining us on the show. It's always a pleasure to have your company. So, Nigel Nelson, I'm joined there. Tony Smith had a preemptive pop at you, didn't he, earlier on there? So you probably will say that they're not illegal. He says that they are. But back to the case in point. This scheme is a chocolate teapot. It's meant to be a deterrent, and it's patently failing.
Well, first of all, you don't know that. The success is that we've identified this guy by biometrics, as we identified the previous one. The result of that is he's going straight back to France, and when he does, he will know he's wasted his money on his second crossing. Yeah, because he's wasted a lot of money on his second crossing. Like a yo-yo. So as we progress, given it's been going 3 months, this scheme, as we progress, as we get more people across, they're going to discover there's absolutely no point paying a people smuggler to take them back here again, but they'll immediately be caught. So from that point of view, it's working. Keir Starmer never said this was going to be the solution to all our problems. It is part of the solution. It will act as a bit of a deterrent. And we have also the advantage of the fact that we're now deciding asylum cases in France, in a foreign country, which could lead us to the next stage, which is processing abroad.
But the whole point of this is that the French get to choose who we have to take. This is one in, one out. Although it's been 38,000 in illegally. It's something like 100 have been deported, but we must take 100 back. The French get to choose who they take. They won't take the very worst. They won't take the wrong ones, and they get to choose who we take in. It's a complete and utter farce, and it's patently no form of deterrent.
Well, we don't know that yet.
We do know it.
We don't.
Look at the numbers.
We've had 2 people.
38,000 have come in.
And so far, we've managed to send 94 back. So, so out of those 94, 2 people have made the crossing. It was a stupid thing to do because they've obviously had to pay a great deal of money for their second crossing, which they've now lost, and they've been sent back. We may well see others try and do the same thing. They will be sent back. As that spreads amongst the migrant community across the Channel, they'll know there's absolutely no point trying to get back into Britain again.
So you're convinced that despite the fact we've only sent 100 odd back, and we must take 100 in for that, and 2 of them have been sent across the Channel like yo-yos, and 38,000 have still come here illegally, and it's patently and provably no form of deterrent, you think this is the silver bullet?
It is not a silver bullet. I've just said that. We don't solve the problem that way. Tony is absolutely right. What we need to do is increase the numbers who we're sending back. And if we can do that, then it will become more and more of a deterrent. I am arguing it's a bit of a deterrent. It's a way of stopping a few people crossing the Channel.
The fact they've come back to Britain illegally for a second time proves it's working.
No, because they're wasting their money. Why would you, if you were an asylum seeker, why would you make that journey twice?
Well, they have. Ask them.
And how stupid is that? And that will get across to other people that it's crazy to try and do it a second time. But it'll take time for that to percolate through, and we've only had 3 months.
Perhaps it'll be third time lucky. Thank you very much, Nigel Nelson. A pleasure as always. Now, coming up in just a moment's time.
We will remove people with no right to be here, and we will secure Britain's borders.
How would you feel about paying to help deported illegal migrants and foreign criminals set up their own business in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Because that's precisely what the Home Office are planning, and you are paying. That's next.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We've got some heavy rain moving back into parts of Spain and Portugal the next few days. Some showers towards Turkey as well. But in between some sunny spells, risk of some rain moving into Madeira come Tuesday, and that rain finally approaching western parts of Portugal later on in the day. But elsewhere across the Mediterranean, generally dry with some sunny spells, though showers moving from Greece into Turkey through the day. Some of these could be heavy at times, and the outlook is for it to be largely dry with sunny spells, temperatures near average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Evening, more wet and windy weather to come tomorrow, especially in western parts where we have Met Office yellow warnings in place for the rainfall. Mild for many, although it is turning a bit colder tonight. The wet and windy weather tomorrow coming from this area of low pressure. This one's been bringing plenty of rain through the day today. Still some heavy downpours across northeast England, southeast Scotland this evening, but they're heading away out into the North Sea. A few showers across the southeast, but many places becoming dry and clear for a time. But here comes that next weather system bringing rain to Northern Ireland, West Wales by dawn, and the winds strengthening here too. Mild again in the southwest, but elsewhere a pretty chilly night actually, certainly compared to recent nights, and pockets of frost likely in northeast Scotland in rural areas. But should be a bright enough start here, dry and fine. We'll see some sunny spells, just a few showers in western Scotland. But head further south, the cloud already thickening, turning wet across Dumfries and Galloway for the morning rush hour. Really soggy start for Northern Ireland, and heavy bursts of rain covering much of Wales and western England too. Much of the East Midlands and East Anglia in the southeast will have a dry and generally dry, fine starts, which will continue for most of the day. But the winds will be picking up in the west. Have Met Office warnings in place for South Wales, southwest Scotland, and for the afternoon southwest England, with another pulse of rain coming in here. We also have to keep an eye on Northern Ireland because, again, here the ground is very wet, so more rain could also cause some flooding issues here. Much of northern Scotland stays dry on the chilly side here, but elsewhere it is, again, pretty mild with temperatures into the teens. The rain continues through the evening. A lot of spray surface water on the roads for Tuesday evening's rush hour. Yellow warnings remain in place across the west too. That rain continues northwards, grinds to halts on Wednesday across the far north. Further showery rain in the south, but in between we should on Wednesday see something a little drier and a little brighter with some sunshine around. Goodbye.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, your host, Martin Dorby. Now, how many times have you heard the Labour government say this?
We will remove people with no right to be here, and we will secure Britain's borders.
Well, here's something that they might have left out. Yes, how would you feel about paying for deported illegal migrants and foreign criminals to set up businesses overseas, having been deported? That's precisely what's happening, because the new Home Office-backed Dragon's Den-style business scheme for deported foreign sex offenders has today been slammed by British taxpayers. Last week, the Home Office published on its procurement page an appeal for NGOs and charities to apply for the scheme to help fund deportees to set up businesses, provide accommodation, and even give them some mental health therapy. That's right, the scheme could be expanded and set up and paid for by you in Morocco, in Sri Lanka, Algeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and even Somalia. This is all true. I'm joined now by the Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates, as well as GB News and senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Rob, another cracking exclusive for you and another one that had me headbutting the table. This can't be true.
No, this one made me really angry, especially in the light of the recent £500 bung to, of course, the Epping Bell sex predator, £500. I think if we're deporting any illegal immigrant, if we're deporting anyone that's come to our country and committed heinous crimes and then they have been eligible for deportation, I really think it is illegitimate and entirely inappropriate for the Home Office to be saying to them, don't worry, once you get there, we'll help you set up a business, we'll give you, support you getting access to mental health support, training, vocational qualifications, accommodation temporarily as well. It strikes me that this is a real instance where the government is prepared to actually abandon its sort of moral compass and actually almost encourage and support the behaviour of some foreign national offenders who have done really, really bad things. And this isn't just individuals who have agreed to go to save the Home Office a lot of hassle. The reason why this scheme is so ridiculous is because they're extending it to individuals who have been deported. So they've been dragged kicking and screaming out of the country onto a plane, and then as soon as they get dropped off in their country of origin, they're going to turn around and go, oh, can I have the things now that you've sort of said in this scheme that I'm entitled to? It's a ridiculous state of affairs, and it's once again putting the British taxpayer last.
So, Rob Bates, let's just break this down step by step. Let's just say a foreign sex offender gets a £500 sweetener to go back, clear off back to their country. The flight's paid for. They've been living at British taxpayers' expense the entire time they've been in the United Kingdom. And then they land in Somalia or Algeria or wherever it may be, and they're offered tips, help, advice, paid for by the British taxpayer to help set up a small business in somewhere like Somalia, a land riddled with corruption, incompetence and, benign forces towards the UK. What could possibly go wrong?
No, and I think if you look at exactly what this Labour government is doing to British businesses and people hoping to start a British business, absolutely walloping them, and will be doing more so in the upcoming budget. I think it's really, really unjust that they are giving handouts to people who have broken our trust, have been invited into our country, have turned around, spat in our face and committed really grave insults on the British public, committing sex crimes, really violent crimes, drug trafficking, the whole works. They would all be eligible under this. Of all individuals that were removed in the last 12 months, we'd see about a third of individuals being eligible to qualify for some form of support under this scheme. At the moment, it's only on a sort of expression of interest stage, so there's still hope that the Home Office will see sense, and I hope they really do so, because extending this to individuals who have been deported just really is a line too far.
Nigel Nelson, a dragon's den for dodgy deportees. Surely even you can't think this is a good idea.
Well, the whole point is a way of saving money. So if you can get people out of the country, we don't have to keep them in prison. If they're not in prison, we don't have to keep them in hotels. One other idea is to pay them £100 if they're living in a hotel to stay with friends or relatives. If that works, you save yourself over £1,000 because that's what the hotel costs. In this particular case, it's about £3,000 for each person. There are countries that we have to persuade to take back their foreign offenders. Some countries won't allow it unless the offender actually agrees to the deportation. So there's a whole host of different things operating here. If you can get them out of the country, make sure they stay out of the country, that is a bonus to the British taxpayer.
Yeah, but you can't get them out of the country and make them stay out of the country. They come back over the channel in dinghies. Rob Bates, I'll put it to you, there'd be many, many people watching this show, small business, entrepreneurs, who would love to get £3,000 from the government themselves to set up a business in Britain.
They'd be crying out for it. I think we need to recognise that this is actually also now being applicable to individuals who have been deported, which is a far more expensive process of removing an individual from the country. I believe there is a space for voluntary returns and of paying some individuals once their asylum claim is sort of getting clogged up in the system. I think that is a much cheaper option than deporting them. Yeah. But if we are to be giving, on top of the extraordinary costs of someone that has dragged their heels and really put the British taxpayer and the British legal system through the ringer, we're then going to turn around and give them actually this support on top of it. I think it's it's a step too far, in my opinion. I think many people would think that it is simply unjust that someone who hasn't accepted that they've done wrongdoing and has fought tooth and nail to actually remain in the country and therefore had to be deported rather than voluntarily returned.
Yeah, but the whole thing is that if it works, then that's great. One of the things that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is studying now is Denmark. Denmark's asylum claims are at a 40-year low. They pay $24,000 to get someone out of their country. So if you can do it for $3,000, we're doing it cheaply. But if these things work, if it saves money for the taxpayer, surely that must be a benefit.
Algeria, Morocco, Somalia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, these always factor as some of the world's most corrupt nations.
But that's not our problem, that bit.
It is, because if we're shoveling money into small business startups on foreign soil, this money could go anywhere.
What you're trying to do is make sure that particular, and these will be illegal migrants or foreign national offenders, what you're trying to do is to make sure they go back to their own country and can't come back to Britain. If you can do that for £3,000, that would be a bargain.
I think we should also stop playing hardball and start actually making those countries of origin stump up some of the costs for this. I think actually if we start putting sanctions on visas, on trade, on remittances, on just general sort of commerce, I think, and we can start making life more difficult for those countries of origin as well. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to get away with this without a bill.
You can do it with carrot and stick. That would be one way of doing it. Yes, certainly visa restrictions, but if we can do it with their agreement, much better that way, because the likelihood is any scheme could then grow.
Nigel Nelson, Rob Bates, the lunatics surely once again have taken over our asylum system. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed. Now, coming up in just a moment's time, we'll be revealing exclusively new analysis on sex offences by those with foreign backgrounds as the government continues to refuse to share the data with the public. That's next.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Let's get straight back to the United States. President Trump has given the BBC until Friday, 10 o'clock, to apologise or he'll sue for $1 billion. Now, the president is demanding the broadcaster apologise for the misleading video of his January the 6th speech, which, of course, featured on the Panorama programme. Well, GB News presenter Ben Leo is in Washington, D.C. for us. And Ben Leo, you just got to have an exclusive interview with Donald Trump's lawyer. Tell us more.
Hello, Martin, viewers and listeners. Hope you're well. Yes, I've just got off the phone to Donald Trump's lawyer and I've asked him about this massive $1 billion lawsuit that is currently engulfing the BBC. I'm not going to reveal the details. Of course, I'm here to plug our own show, The Late Show Live, which is broadcast tonight in the UK from midnight. But the questions I asked, the key questions are, what would President Trump be happy with? What is the figure for him to finally draw a line under this row with the BBC and Panorama? What is the number? Because previously President Trump in the United States, he sued two broadcasters separately, one for a very similar incident with CBS News, who pretty much doctored and spliced an interview with Kamala Harris. He sued CBS for, I think it was $10 billion, and he settled for $16 million. So I said to Trump's lawyer just a moment ago, what is the number you'd settle for? The answer will be revealed tonight. But the underlining mission statement here from President Trump and his lawyer is, you have until Friday, BBC, to apologise and pay up, or else we are going to pursue this $1 billion defamation case in Floridian courts. I can confirm it will be in US courts in Florida, which is crucial because the time limit for defamation cases in Florida is 2 years. If the case was brought in the UK, it wouldn't stand because the defamation statute is 1 year, so time would have run out. So I can confirm now it will be in Florida if the BBC, A, don't apologise by Friday, and B, pay up. And I think we have a little clip from my chat with the guy just now. Let's take a look. What's your message to them? What's the President's message to the BBC right at this moment?
I think the message is fairly transparent in that the President will hold accountable those that transmit false and fake information. He believes that there is an institutional bias that's been reflected in the reporting about him, that there has been a lack of impartiality with respect to the reporting that has been engaged in. I think that there's been an intentional ignorance of evidence of bias within the BBC that needs to be remedied through governance arrangements that are fair and appropriate. And I think that those are the messages that we're trying to convey to them at this point in time.
So there we go, just a little flavour of what's coming tonight on The Late Show Live from midnight. I also asked whether President Trump had any influence on the resignation of Davey and Turness yesterday. Is it something he demanded? And secondly, what about the fact that it's going to be licence fee payers, BBC licence fee payers, who will end up footing the bill for any settlement or court costs for the BBC? The lawyer said, look, President Trump is a massive Anglophile. He loves Great Britain, but the BBC need to pay a price. Lots more coming tonight, Martin, from midnight, so don't miss it.
A beautiful exclusive, Ben Leo tonight, midnight on The Late Show Live. Donald Trump's lawyer speaks out. Thank you, Ben. Now back to Blighty. Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Dorby. It's no secret that the government doesn't appear to want to publish the data on migrant crime. Indeed, it was just a few weeks ago that it voted against revealing it. Well, my next guest has for some time had the inkling that there is a problem here and so has conducted his very own analysis, his exclusive analysis he shared with GB News tonight, and the results are genuinely shocking. Using methodology based on non-British-sounding surnames across 9 urban Crown courts, the study has shown that over a 6-week period, the average percentage of non-British last-name defendants made up a majority in Birmingham, in Bradford and in Snaresbrook, and of sex offences made up an astonishing 41% in Bradford, 31% in Sheffield and 29% in Snaresbrook. Now, there's no doubt the methodology is incomplete, but the only reason for that is that the government won't release the data itself. Well, here's the man now who conducted this astonishing research. It's a criminal defence lawyer, Marcus Johnston, as well as GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Marcus, welcome to the studio as ever. An incredible set of data. Tell us how you compiled it and tell us what it shows us.
Well, we started compiling it because for a long time I've realised there seems to be a massive increase in the number of foreign defendants that certainly are contacting me each day, people accused of crime, disproportionately to the number that they are in society. So it was a concern as to why so many, particularly Pakistani men, are accused of crimes and sex crimes. Probably 50–60% of people that contact my firm each day are young Pakistani men. Or it's all sex crimes. So that was a concern in case they've been unfairly targeted. So the idea was to do some research based on the courts. We chose 9 courts around the country. There are around about 50 in total. And to start to gather the data as to what types of crimes are being committed. And the information that we've been gathering over the last 6 weeks, as you said, is startling. It's a real concern because there has been a massive increase in the number of people committing offences and the number of sex crimes. Now, we know that the analysis based on names is not scientific. We know there's problems with that, but it's the best that we can get at the moment because there's no other data being obtained.
And Marcus, in some of your findings are astonishing. On some of the highest days, 80% of the sex offenders in Birmingham had foreign-sounding names, 70% in Bradford. Are you convinced there's a clear link going on here?
Well, there is a link, there's no doubt about it, because the figures are consistent. We see regularly 25% of those with foreign-sounding names committing sex offences. In Bradford, it's around about 40%. Every single day in the courts, that's how it's averaging. You have got spikes, so Sheffield on one occasion recently was 83% of people, foreign-sounding names appearing in court were there for sex offences. Now, this is Crown Court, which is the serious cases. So these are serious offences. And just the latest today, Martin, which was passed through to me as I was travelling down today, with Bradford Crown Court today, for example, 24 out of 44 were non-British named defendants. 10 of those charged with serious sex crimes.
OK.
So it's the figures are of a real concern.
Thank you, Marcus. Nigel Nelson, it's a startling set of data here.
Yeah, and I've always said that I think the government should be more transparent about ethnic origin, and we seem to be going that way. But in this particular case, 1 in 4 people in Birmingham are not British-born, 1 in 5 in Bradford, so you'd expect the courts to be full of people like that. I mean, I think that the only question really is somebody with a non-British name doesn't mean they're non-British. So obviously, what you need is a more forensic way of collecting the data.
But that is precisely the point that Marcus Johnston says. In the absence of the actual data, we have to do workarounds. It certainly is a huge amount of food for thought. Marcus Johnston, thanks for coming down, travelling down to be with us tonight, sharing your exclusive findings with us. Thank you to you as well, Nigel Nelson, as always. Now, of course, coming up next is State of the Nation tonight, of course, hosted by the magnificent Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Sir Jacob, what's on your menu?
Well, inevitably, we're going to be talking about the BBC. This is one of the biggest scandals it's ever been hit by, talking about how the BBC could possibly reform itself, what chance there is for it, the new news from Trump suing for $1 billion. I don't think he'll get $1 billion, but it's interesting that he's got the BBC in its sights. And many of us have thought the BBC was biased for years. We've now got the proof. This is copper-bottomed evidence that the BBC is biased. We're also going to celebrate the very good news that having a drink after work is frightfully good for you, and I will demonstrate how to make the perfect martini. So now you're going to get the weather, and I believe in Somerset the sun will be shining all day tomorrow, so that's the best news, and that's coming up now, or at least in a very few seconds, the weather from Somerset.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. More wet and windy weather to come tomorrow, especially in western parts where we have Met Office yellow warnings in place for the rainfall. Mild for many, although it is turning a bit colder tonight. The wet and windy weather tomorrow coming from this area of low pressure. This one's been bringing plenty of rain through the day today. Still some heavy downpours across northeast England, southeast Scotland this evening, but they're heading away out into the North Sea. A few showers across the southeast, but many places becoming dry and clear for a time. But here comes that next weather system bringing rain to Northern Ireland, West Wales by dawn, and the winds strengthening here too. Mild again in the southwest, but elsewhere a pretty chilly night actually, certainly compared to recent nights, and pockets of frost likely in northeast Scotland in rural areas. But should be a bright enough start here, dry and fine. We'll see some sunny spells, just a few showers in western Scotland. But head further south, the cloud already thickening, turning wet across Dumfries and Galloway for the morning rush hour. Really soggy start for Northern Ireland and heavy bursts of rain covering much of Wales and western England too. Much of the East Midlands and East Anglia in the southeast will have a dry and generally dry, fine start, which will continue for most of the day. But the winds will be picking up in the west. Have Met Office warnings in place for South Wales, southwest Scotland, and for the afternoon southwest England, with another pulse of rain coming in here. We also have to keep an eye on Northern Ireland because again here the ground is very wet, so more rain could also cause some flooding issues here. Much of northern Scotland stays dry on the chilly side here, but elsewhere it is, again, pretty mild with temperatures into the teens. The rain continues through the evening. A lot of spray surface water on the roads for Tuesday evening's rush hour. Yellow warnings remain in place across the west too. That rain continues northwards, grinds to a halt on Wednesday across the far north. Further showery rain in the south, but in between we should on Wednesday see something a little drier and a little brighter with some sunshine around. Goodbye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket.